Rest, rest, and more rest.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. See to it.
You know what they're calling her? The soldier's preserver.
Who calls her that?
All sorts, Ma'am. It's from a song.
Really? A song about Florence? Oh, my poor brave little girl.
Come, my dear.
My beloved mother and father. How they fought to keep me at home. Fought all my plans and dreams for myself. But now that I'm a national heroine, how proud they are. They even call me brave. Brave. Brave for doing my duty. The soldiers, they were the brave ones. Lying there, strapped down, while their shattered legs were hacked off. And
Whene'er a noble deed is wrought, whene'er is spoken a noble thought, lo, in that house of misery, a lady with a lamp I see. She passes through the glimmering gloom and flits from room to room.
Service, Victoria.
Her Majesty will be in Balmoral next week. She wants to meet you and to talk. I believe she may even be inclined to listen. Now, this is important, Florence. The Queen is very interested in the fate of the army. You must remember, she thinks of it as her army. That's the way to engage her interest. Do you follow me?
Do try to be tactful, Florence. Don't say anything that might upset Her Majesty. Nothing about maggots and wounds and frostbite and limbs falling off. Please. Me?
I'll go out and I'll find work.
Oh, my dear young lady.
I will. Think of me as your son, your vagabond son. I won't cost you a penny. Isn't that good, Mother? Marriage is so expensive. Imagine the savings.
I know what you have in mind. This absurd notion of becoming a nurse, which I will never agree to.
That is God's way for me.
Don't bring God into this again. It has nothing to do with him, and you know it. I will not allow you to disgrace yourself. Emptying slop buckets. Living at the beck and call of lechers and drunks. Have you any idea what goes on in hospitals?
May I offer you some tea, dear?
Thank you, Mum.
Please continue.
Yes, Mum. We lost 10,000 men in 6 months, mostly through gross incompetence, and I came home to find that many of the officers responsible had been promoted. Given honours, medals, titles. Crimes were committed, terrible suffering inflicted that could easily have been avoided.
Yes, Miss Nightingale, but what exactly entitles you to be the judge of that?
I studied and visited all the hospitals in London, Dublin, Edinburgh, Paris, Rome and Berlin. I was twice in training with the Protestant deaconesses at the Kaiserwerth Institute in Germany. I spent 1 year as superintendent of the Harley Street nursing home. I personally scrubbed floors of sick rooms, emptied bedpans. I nursed cholera patients whose whole bodies were a mass of...
Secure. And your parents permitted all of this?
They came to understand that I had a calling, that this has truly been God's will for me.
I see. And what is it you suggest we do about these crimes, as you call them?
A royal commission, Ma'am.
A royal commission?
Nothing less than a royal commission will suffice to bring out the truth. It is our sacred duty to the Crimean dead. And if I may, Your Majesty, it is also a heaven-sent opportunity to reform the entire hospital system of the nation, not just of the army. Beg your pardon, Ma'am. Of your army. Forgive me, Ma'am. It has been a lifelong dream of mine.
We shall think about it. Remarkable woman. I wish we had her at the War Office.
I'll convey that sentiment to the Minister, Ma'am.
Good. Oh, and as to that commission...
Yes, Ma'am, I seriously doubt whether it's in the best interests
May I finish?
Ma'am.
We do want our brave soldiers to receive the very best care. Please see to it.
The Commission.
The Commission, Prime Minister.
Much drilling. Some experienced, some less so. Some happy just to be paid. Some there out of pure charity and love of God.
Follow me. Step lively. Mind where you put your feet.
We had expected chaos, but nothing had prepared us for those barracks at Scutari. Here, just across a narrow strip of water from Constantinople, the British High Command had established the nearest thing I'd ever seen to hell on earth. It was, in fact, the main hospital for receiving the casualties from the Crimea. It was there I met Sir John Hall, Chief Medical Officer for the British Army in the East.
No chloroform for the lower ranks, Mr. Davis. Let us hear the man bawl lustily. At least then we'll know he's still alive. Fine, carry on.
Sir?
That was the moment of victory. We were liberated, set free to do what we had trained for and had come to do. But after victory comes counterattack, in the shape of a system seemingly designed to create confusion. The officials in charge of supplies, I soon discovered, were masters of red tape, experts in obfuscation and delay. I was clearly marked out as the enemy. I needed allies, and I knew of only two sources I could rely on. The good Lord who never left me through all my trials, and his chief angel of mercy, my old friend Sidney Herbert. Dear Mr. Herbert, the supply officers fix their attention on the correctness of their bookkeeping as the primary object of life. Last week we had run out of bread, soap, carrots, poultices, and many other necessities. I went to the supply officer and asked him, was he expecting these things from England? No, he said. Are you doing anything about purchasing them? No, he said. Can they be had in the local town? If they can, I don't know how to get them, was his answer. So, Mr. Herbert, I went out myself and I bought them with my own money. In short, I am now a general dealer in socks, shirts, knives and forks, The tin meat baths, is not cabbage and cooked. carrots. The water is not boiled. The cooking is done by drunken soldiers. I must refer again to the deficiency of knives and forks here. The men tear their food like animals. Will you send us 1,000 mops, 3,000 tin plates? I go about making the orderlies empty huge tubs of human waste. The mortality is frightful. 30 in the last 24 hours, and this was Christmas Day, 1854. The state of the troops who return here is frostbitten, starved, ragged. No wonder they die in their hundreds. No washing has been performed for the men, neither of body linen nor of bed linen, except by ourselves. The consequences of this are fever, cholera. I shall endure. I shall not break my heart of disappointment at the total inefficiency of the hospital system here. I shall bear it willingly. I was called to do this work, and I will fight on for God and for the right, for they are worth fighting for. I now see clearly what must be done. If these conditions are happening here, they are happening elsewhere. I have written a plan for the systematic reorganization of these hospitals. Please make sure, Mr. Herbert, that it reaches the highest levels of the government. I have more and more reason to believe that these hospitals are the kingdom of hell, but I fervently believe they can be... Time for rounds. The quarters we were herded into were squalid and cramped, alive with vermin. The air, heavy with the stench of fever and death.
Oh, so that's where he went. Been missing for a day or two. Sorry about that, ladies. We'll have it removed forthwith.
First, the strongest of you to the washtubs. Everyone else, let's have these floors swept, the windows cleaned, that stove working. Where are the brooms?
Brooms? That's a joke.
Find brooms. If you can't find them, make them. That night, we went to bed in the dark. The next day, we cleaned out our new home, and then nothing. It was as if we had been sealed up in our dingy little corner, frozen out by Sir John Hall and his doctors, deliberately forgotten. Was this why we had travelled all across Europe? We knew how much we were needed, and we knew the difference we could make. This was the cruelest trial of all. To wait, to have to listen to the screams of the sick and dying, was almost past endurance. But I knew those gentlemen officers. They saw us as twittering society do-gooders in search of a fevered brow to mop or a manly hand to hold, as a brave soldier slipped off to his maker. Bless our dear little hearts. They certainly did not want some well-connected female nuisance giving instructions to their orderlies. But I'd grown up with ministers of the realm and titled bigwigs sitting at our dinner table. I knew the little games, I knew the rules, and I knew how to win. So, we waited. But had spent more time on the parade ground than on the battlefield, commanded by a dear old gentleman whose last taste of action was Waterloo 40 years before. This force, incredibly, due to the heroism of the common soldier, won 3 battles against huge odds. But the cost, and those blundering generals. I know this much. If any woman had managed her kitchen the way our generals managed that campaign, she and her entire family would have been reduced to the poorhouse in weeks. As it was, the British Army was reduced to a regiment of living skeletons, dressed in rags, crawling with vermin, and if they were wounded or got sick, worse was waiting. A death house in the shape of the military hospital at Scutari. The casualties mounted and the death rate soared. Thousands died of disease and neglect. But the soldiers were writing home, and the London Times sent out its best reporter. Before long, the appalling truth was known in every English parlour. Only then did we begin to understand the full horror of what our men were going through.
Listen to this. It is with feelings of anger and surprise that the public will learn that no preparations have been made to care for our wounded in the Crimea. Not only are there not sufficient surgeons, there's not even linen to make bandages. Arriving at the hospital, they lie in their own waste, covered by a single blanket, eating meat, raw, stiff with salt, or rotten with maggots.
Not over breakfast, dear, please.
Let me see. Excuse me, Mother. At last, I knew what I must do. All my training could now be put to use. But I needed an ally. So I wrote to my dear old friend, Sidney Herbert, now a powerful member of the War Cabinet. As it happened, a letter from him crossed with mine in the post.
Dear Miss Nightingale, I have recently been receiving letters from ladies offering to go out to the Crimea and give medical care to our injured troops. I know of only one person in England capable of organizing and directing such a scheme. Yourself. I suggest that you start interviewing likely candidates as soon as possible.